It's a Friday, and we're talking football non-stop. All football, all the time. This is another edition of Football Friday with JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back. JJ and Alex, 97.5 BKSL Sports Zone. I think we're back. Some connection issues, but not much. Oh, the sun's going to start baking our whole system here. We're gonna have an issue. But we're at Weber High School. Jeremiah Jensen, Alex Curie, Riley Nelson. Stevenson Sylvester is going to send us his scores. I've been promised he's going to send us his scores so we can get our weekly score updates.
Should we guess what Stevenson's scores are going to be?
Yeah. We'll even go off of that.
Utah 48, Oklahoma State
nothing.
Bears.
See, Sly says, "Oh, I've got to be a little bit better about it." Because what did he say? It was like he did say something pretty astronomically high for the Utes, right?
Well, no. How about I mean, it was early in our relationship, so I still, although I'm getting more and more comfortable, by the minute. But he was like, "This is an offense going to average 45 points a game." I was like, "Whoa!"
Right.
When was the last time?
Never.
Yeah. With Urban and Alex, maybe, but that was like a 2-year thing. Come on.
Yeah, that was a whole identity situation that had changed over. But yes, we've got Utah versus Oklahoma State. We got BYU versus Kansas State. We have Utah State going out to Philadelphia and taking on the Temple Owls, who are considered one of the worst teams in the country. Which is a nice place to go if you're Nate Dreiling. We're trying to get Nate Dreiling to 6 wins and a trip to a bowl game. I don't know what it's going to take to keep him here at Utah State, and I don't know if people feel like that's even the guy that they want to keep for a long-term situation. I like the guy's style. I like the way he approached last week. I thought they did a phenomenal job against Utah, considering that they were so far behind that team, ultimately. But
his players play hard for him, too.
They really do.
They respond well to him.
They buy in quite a bit. So
we have some Utah State breaking news. Should we do it now?
Oh, absolutely. Hey, give us some breaking news sounder here. Jeremy, what do you have over here from the Utah State breaking news desk, JJ?
Live from the Aggie Sports Desk, Pete Thamel of ESPN reporting that Spencer Petras will start Saturday for Utah State against Temple. He's 100% and will make his 33rd career start.
What are we doing? Hey, Utah State, what are we doing? Is he your best option, really? Bryson Barnes, didn't he show
Riley
something?
Can answer that.
Didn't he show something last week that we're like, oh, yeah, that's the guy?
I'm not going to answer that, but I will pose this question. Would you rather signal to the transfer portal that you are a welcoming and advantageous place for rehabbing P5 talent, or which I guess you could claim Bryson Barnes as that, but Bryson Barnes was JC and then walk on P5 and come back versus Petras, who was like a P5 guy, played P5, looking for a place to go sling it around and come in there. I think it's more of a signal, and I've seen Utah State do the same thing too. Like I felt like they hung on to Slovis. I felt like it was apparent very early that Slovis wasn't the guy. But you need to signal a transfer portal. They're like, hey, we'll come here, and even if it's to build depth or get lucky with a one-year wonder guy coming to you for a 5th year of eligibility. That's what I think. You said, what are we doing here, Alex?
Yeah, what are we doing?
That's what they're doing.
They're okay.
And
they're
they probably feel like he has deserved a fair shot because it was an injury that took him out.
They're signaling to the transfer portal that Utah State is a safe haven for you to come and be a part. There's no freaking way. Or you're just trying to win a dang football game week to week. And why wouldn't Bryson Barnes? Bryson Barnes, I think we saw the kind of guy that he is. Now, look, he can give you a couple picks. Now, one of them was an insane
play.
Crazy play by Smith Snowden. That ball was right on his receiver's chest, and it suddenly ended up in the hands of a Smith Snowden. So that one I go whatever. The other one was a bad one, but it was also very Bryson Barnes brand. Spencer Petras.
Well, the other one, it looked identical, too, to a pick that Caleb Williams threw against the Texans in the NFL. So it happens. But anyway, keep going.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because I like Bryson Barnes. Like,
I think it is.
I just think that he brings a little bit of a different energy to that team. I don't know. That guy could go out. I think now maybe it's because they're playing against Temple and they're like, let's get him back in there.
So Utah
about this
really quick. I want to hear. I'm just going to say you talk about Bryson Barnes and one of the things. So they may have had 2 to 3 more explosives had he been able to actually throw a deep ball with both height and depth, meaning drive it down the field. Everything was so flat. Utah was playing man-to-man on the outside and not even safety over help. They were playing too high, but then they were rotating down. They were not helping their corners out, and he continued to throw. You mentioned the Smith-Snowden pick. That was a direct result. Had that had that ball been thrown up in the air with loft to where the receiver goes up, instead, because that reached the limits of his arm, he had to flatten it out to get it there and allow the DB to make a play on it.
They were basically horizontal. Whereas
in Petrus, you got a big traditional guy who can throw it, 60 yards from his knees and things like that. Now, I know that that's all a lot overrated, but anyway, JJ,
it's also not
thought?
his strength. Spencer Petrus does not throw the ball at times.
I love Bryson Barnes. I covered him when he was at Milford High School, setting all kinds of records. It's an incredible story.
Here come the insults.
The Prince of Pigs,
Barnes family.
The walk-on at Utah, worked at Home Depot, the whole thing. Here's the deal. Spencer Petrus won that job not in the fall, in the spring.
Yeah.
It was so convincing that he was the quarterback to lead that program. He won the job in spring, and Bryson was there in spring competing. And 2 guys transferred because Petrus won the job.
Yeah.
It was that clear cut that he was the guy. And so if I'm that coaching staff, even though Coach Anderson's not there anymore, their OC was – and he's calling the plays, and they have some confidence in Spencer Petrus. I think they want to see what he can do when he's healthy as the starter, and this is a good spot before they go to Mountain West play for them to see what he can give them. So I think they're making the right choice. Spencer Petrus won the job. Why would you not bring him back? I mean, it's not like they killed it the last 2 games.
And that is an old football adage, like no one deserves to lose their job to injury.
Unless you're Alex Smith.
Yeah.
Other than that.
Hold on, are you talking about when Mahomes replaced him?
Well, Kaepernick,
which one?
The first time around.
Oh, yeah, the Niners.
Kaepernick,
I forget.
Wally pipped him with the 49ers.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like I forgot about the first one. I was going to say that Mahomes one, I feel like that was pretty evident early in camp. That it was only a matter of time. Yeah.
Well, I certainly see what – I mean, look, you've got to maintain some sort of the locker room tells you what actually should be going on, right? And
look,
obviously
if it goes badly for Spencer, now that he's 100% healthy, they can go back and everyone's got confidence that Bryson can get it done.
Yeah, I just think that he brings in an energy that sometimes I don't think – because Spencer Petrus just is not really like a big playmaker type quarterback. So
you may be right.
Anyway.
But we got to find out, and they got to find out, I think. And they think they want to.
I don't know how – I mean, Temple is bad, and so Utah State right now – obviously, they get to win game 1, and then they have 2 absolutely brutal opponents between USC and Utah in your second and third week. I can't think that. I mean, those aren't fun games to play when you're getting beat up that bad down in the Coliseum. What was it, 48-0? You had a way better showing at home against Utah, and you know what you can do. And I think that's part of the thing is that now they're going to be able to run it up on Temple this week. And then you get into Mountain West play, and there's not a team on that Mountain West schedule that is scarier than the teams they've already faced.
I was going to say, like, they have the luxury. We haven't got into really doing a breakdown on the Cougs, but, like, Utah State is the exact opposite position of the Cougars in that Utah State knows that, to what you just said, like, every opponent from here on out will not be a stiffer test than what they've already faced versus BYU, where every opponent from here on out will likely be a more stiff test than they have faced in the non-conference schedule.
So Utah State had to go back-to-back to USC-Utah, which is brutal, and then they've got to go all the way across the country to play Temple. The good news for them is they get a bye week before Boise State on October 5th. But, Riley, how difficult is that to play those big-time games and have to turn around and get on a plane and travel 3 or 2 time zones in 5 hours to go play an opponent, whether they're good or not? It seems like it's tough.
Jeremy could tell us the win percentage on the team traveling 2 time zones.
He's on it.
but I've heard it's not great. I don't know. I didn't they leave Thursday? Most often when you're crossing 2 time zones, you leave Thursday. I never. So East Coast, we played Florida State. That was the only time. We played Tulane. Anyway, I did a couple times. It didn't seem Two time zones didn't seem to be a huge thing for me because we always left on Thursday, and you had all of Friday to kind of get acclimated and get jazzed up, and then game day. I can imagine that'd be brutal.
Tulane was at the Superdome, right?
Yeah, correct.
I was there.
That was a dang blowout, wasn't it?
You guys crushed them.
Yeah, baby. I scored my first touchdown as a Cougar in that game.
I want to think that. So those first 2 weeks.
That 2009 team was so good.
What was the start to that season? Then it was
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma was the 14 to. Was that 14?
Tulane the next week.
Tulane the next week.
Then ranked top 15, and then you had Florida State come in.
Florida State came.
Was that week 3?
Yeah. Florida State, and that was Coach Bobby Bowden at his best of lying through his teeth that his team was struggling.
Yeah,
that was my favorite. All right, let's take a break. You talked about let's break down some BYU. We haven't talked much about BYU yet.
Yeah, we got to get into the Cougs.
We're going to get into that matchup with the Kansas State Wildcats. That's the one that is absolutely wild to me. How is this one going to go? What's an 8:30 kickoff in Provo look like? Really, an 8:41 kickoff. That's going to be a late night for everybody, all right? So just deal with it. Get yourself double up on the Cougar tails. They're going to be white, and they have the vanilla white ones and the regular. So figure it out and get yourself right. But we're going to break that all down. Our program is always brought to you by G2G Bars. And also this portion of the show brought to you by the folks at the Doug Smith dealerships at American Fork and Spanish Fork. Nobody knows service like Doug knows service. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We've got more to go. It is a Football Friday, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
It's a Friday, and we're talking football non-stop. All football, all the time. This is another edition of Football Friday with JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
They're a ton of fun. I mean, those are the moments you live for, really, is when you're out there and you're scrapping, and you're either going to be really happy or you're going to be really sad. I love that part about the Big 12 is just you never know. Week in, week out, it's competitive. It's fun. The key to winning those games just comes down to the basic football fundamentals. Take care of the ball, execute our scheme on offense and on defense, and that 9 times out of 10 will get you the win.
BYU defensive end Tyler Batty. Is he still waiting on his first sack of the season, too? I think he is. I will say BYU through 3 games has already more than half of what their total was last year in sacks, which is good. The pressure's been a lot better. They actually this week, I think Mitch Harper and I were talking about this, and I think that they had gotten the vibe that they went very vanilla on defense this last week against Wyoming, knowing that they just needed to make sure that they kept Svoboda throwing the football. Good move.
Smart.
Good move. Not a good showing. So let's start there. The Wyoming game, did it go about as what you thought it was going to go, Riley? Which, by the way, before we get into that, the Chris Kleiman, I think was he the offensive coordinator for
yeah, I think so.
Northern Iowa
guy.
when they came in 2008. Can I throw some numbers at you? So BYU was they were the number 16 team in the country when they played one another. It was the first game of the season of that 2009 year, or 2008, sorry, and they beat Northern Iowa 41-17. You want to hear Max Hall's numbers that day? Harvey Unga did have 2 rushing touchdowns, but he was only 18 carries for 65 yards.
Yeah, it felt like he had a big day that day.
Here's why you didn't need that big of a day from Harvey, because Max Hall went 34 for 41 for 486.
Jeez.
When was the last time we saw numbers like that?
From a BYU
probably that day.
Yeah.
I mean, probably that year. I mean, those 2 years with Max Hall.
Max was insanely good.
It was fun to watch those games. But 486 yards. But 7 incompletions on 41 throws. Pretty darn good. I'm trying to think who do you think was? Oh, do you want to hear Dennis Pitta's day? 11 catches for 218.
Okay.
It helps to have NFL talent on your roster, doesn't it?
The 2008-2009 BYU teams were just – I mean, we'll look back on history. It's like BYU's had a lot of great teams, but that era, Riley, you were a part of it. You were on those teams. That was some really, really good BYU teams loaded with a lot of NFL talent. They were really good.
It was. I remember being at that game.
You say 08-09, that's nice of you, but the way that 08 went and Rice Eccles with was it 4 picks?
Yeah, the quest for perfection and the TCU game. I was at that game.
08 disqualifies you a little bit. 09 was awesome though.
Yeah,
I throw 08 in there because Austin Collie was on the 08 team, and
I know
he had an awesome year.
We did.
They
Oh,
just
did he
had-
come out? So that was his junior year, right?
Yeah.
When he came out.
Yeah.
I remember Bronco being so pissed about him leaving that senior season.
Well,
on the
that was in vogue at the time. Pete Carroll was doing that about Mark Sanchez leaving after his junior
I can't
year at
believe
USC.
you would do that to
Yeah.
this team that we built here. All right, so let's talk about this.
So you said, did it go how we thought it would go?
Yeah, the Wyoming game.
JJ,
Yeah.
Alex was 8 points off. I was 8 points off. I said 30-10. It was 34-14.
No, but you were
Alex
the
said
exact spread, though.
29-17.
Yeah. You were the exact 20-point.
So I was. Oh, okay.
I
so
think
the
I think
20
you
point.
got you got the dub
I
on
get
that,
the
'cause
nod
you
there.
got the-
Riley nailed that one.
So
You had
yeah. So simply put, yes, it went how I expected.
I think, what did I put? I said 27-19 or
Yeah.
something like that, right?
Yeah.
So maybe I tried to get a little bit more credit to Wyoming because they were at home, or maybe they had some stuff. But that was a bad – I don't think we've seen that bad of a quarterback situation across the ball from BYU in a long time. And this is one of the more inaccurate dudes
He's
we've
a
seen.
really good athlete.
Not
He's
gonna
just
have
not
it-
a good quarterback.
Well, you say really good athlete, though. They're actually going to see a really good athlete this week.
right.
Well, let's talk about that because Avery Johnson has been scary because he can do it all. Although I don't think he throws the ball that well yet.
Yeah,
right?
and not in rhythm and not in traditional drop backs.
So tell me what you see with him, because obviously he is an absolute threat on the ground. And I know that, look, BYU against, I think, DJ Williams in that first game, that was not, to me, that Southern Illinois game. I mean, he ran for 113 or 123 yards as the quarterback. But they were on busted plays, and I think I think the circumstances are a little bit different. When you have a guy like Avery Johnson who they'll dial up runs for him, but he can also bail himself out. It's a scary proposition to be able to try to nail that down.
And Kansas State has a track record of doing this. Now, help me out, guy. I should look this up. But Colin Klein, what years was he? I feels like he was a contemporary of mine.
We were
or
just talking
maybe
about this
just
because Colin Klein, I
slightly
think, is
after.
coaching at
Yeah,
Oklahoma right now, right?
Oh, did he?
Is that
he
where it
was
is?
the OC at Kansas State. I don't think he's there anymore.
No, and I think
He's the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Texas A&M.
Texas A&M.
But what were his years at Kansas State?
I'm looking that up right now.
I guess what I'm saying is like Kansas State.
2008 to 2012.
Yeah,
You're
so
right.
he was like a
He's one of your
contemporary of mine.
contemporaries.
I remember him. Now, he was a different player than Avery Johnson, and the Klein was more T-ball, like a lot of QB power, a lot of runs in the box.
Yeah.
And Avery Johnson
Bigger
didn't want to
body,
get on the
too.
roads. Yeah, and here's another comp from my era. Now, listen, I don't think Avery Johnson has the same upside, but I remember at Texas A&M, again, this was pre-Johnny Manziel, but being like, yeah, Texas A&M's got a kid who played wide receiver for him last year starting at quarterback, and that was Ryan Tannehill. To me,
right.
so you say, what is he like? I think Avery Johnson, to me, feels like a converted – like he plays quarterback like a converted wide receiver. Now, obviously, Tannehill went on to be
An actual quarterback.
in NFL, and he had great timing and rhythm and accuracy, and I think a lot of that remains to be developed within Avery Johnson's game. But you said, what does he feel like? Yeah, he feels – it almost feels maybe a little bit like a high school or something like that, where it's like, dude, this guy is dynamic. He throws it good enough, but man, if we can just get him some opportunities in space and throw him off balance in the throw game, like this dude can cause problems for opposing defenses, and that's why I think they got him there, and he's done a good job so far.
DJ Giddens, or is it Giddens, their running back.
Yeah.
He's also pretty darn good. They run the ball first. I mean, Kansas State, that's their
And they're
thing.
not ashamed about it, and they run with the quarterback. Honestly, I think to kind of match styles a little bit, because I think it's a risky proposition for BYU, because BYU, I believe it was you guys or someone on Twitter, I thought it was y'all putting out, basically this is a battle of contrasting styles, a little bit similar to what we were going about Oklahoma and Utah.
Yeah.
Like BYU, even in spite of the competition, is a lot of the statistical passing categories tops in the country, and Kansas State is tops in the country in rushing. And then you go on the defensive side, and Kansas State we saw what they did against Arizona and stifling that passing attack. They have one of the best passing defenses against BYU's offensive production, and then BYU's rush defense, with the exception of the quarterback against Southern Illinois, has been really stout, and so it's going to be a clash. But here's where I was going with this. I want to see BYU pull a page out of Kansas State book and get more design runs. Jake Retzlaff led the team last week in rushing. I actually like that. That shows good leadership to me. It shows a guy who's willing to do what it takes to get the job done. You're down your two running backs that you just spent all of fall camp with. That you're down Martin and you're down Rapati, and he goes goes out there and leads the team in rushing. I don't think that's a problem if they do that again. And then you let Haunga, and Nawahine kind of contribute. By the way, Rapati's out and Martin's doubtful. What's the injury status on the running
so
backs?
both of those guys, I think that you would be pretty hard-pressed to
see them go. So,
see them go
if you're Jake, he ran for, I think, 62 or 67 last week, at least that much production. I'd hope a little bit more because I want to see them expand the run game even beyond just the traditional zone read, which is how between zone read and scrambling is where Jake got the majority of his runs. I'd like to see some GT stuff. I'd like to see some QB stuff. Maybe even some QB power. Get up in there and mix it up to try and get some stuff going that Kansas State hasn't seen yet on film.
Let me give some rushing.
And that Jake can be good at.
Yeah. No, exactly. Let him do the stuff that is working really well for him. I mean, at this point, I think some of the mistakes that he's making, it's a little bit of who he is, right? At this point, you kind of go, some of the weird throws that he just kind of puts up there. Those might just be what the personality is of what you kind of get with him, and you just have to take that with the parts that have been good, which JJ has been phenomenal this week about rolling out the numbers and going, you guys, these are so much better numbers this year. And I know it's only 3 games, but he only played 4 games last year, but the numbers they pop off the page if you were to just have it be QB
if
A
you're just
and QB
judging
B.
the stats.
Yeah,
without looking at it
yes.
on paper, Jake Retzloff's having a really good
Yes.
season. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. You're going to take that any day of the week, right? He's running for 60 yards against a team. I don't care who it is.
So they've passed
and you combine that with the 300 yards passing. That's really good offense.
So in 3 games,
34 points, right? I mean,
yeah. In 3 games,
I know SMU is different, but
in
you're
3
just
games,
going off his last game.
Avery Johnson's only thrown the ball 67 times, which is about
it's 22 a game.
Yeah, and last game it was actually
times.
only 17, and so they've only thrown, and he's only thrown for 490 yards in 3 games.
By the way, I expect to see a lot of a carbon copy of the game plan. Not that Jake Retzlaff is Noah Fafita, but I expect that. They're coming in and they're like, Johnson's going to throw it high teens. We're going to take it. What was time of possession? Arizona, Kansas State.
Oh. Just guessing because they run the ball so much.
I'll hurry and find it while you guys talk.
Just because it was so much, I would assume that they won. They won that.
It's hey, we're going to take the crowd. It's a night game. We're going to take the crowd out of it. We're going to possess the football.
It was almost dead even.
Oh,
really?
That's pretty crazy.
That's a little
Arizona
surprising to
had
me.
it for 30 minutes, 41 seconds. K-State 29-19.
So on a night when Arizona scored 3 points, and that's probably because
7.
they were.
It was 7.
It was 7. So they were forced into.
31-7, yeah.
So they were forced into a lot of bad. I mean, they just weren't scoring.
Well, whenever I hear that, somewhat equal time of possession, yet the spread is that, it means one team was good on critical downs and the other wasn't.
Yeah.
Meaning Kansas State was good on 3rd and red zone.
One special teams touchdown was the difference in that game. The punt return separated Kansas State from Arizona in the second quarter. That was a big play.
Which, by the way, their play-by-play guy, it was us.
That's what they do.
With them. They were like, by the way, the team with the most special teams touchdowns in all of college football since 2017 is K-State. That's another thing they hang their hat on. But I was going to bring you some numbers because he's thrown for 490 yards. Avery Johnson has in 3 games. That's not a number that's crazy.
No.
But he is 6 touchdowns, 1 pick. But here's where they get their work done. DJ Giddens has run the ball 49 times for 325. That's 6.5 per. Avery Johnson is 6.5 per. As a team, they've run the ball 105 times compared to the 71 passing attempts. So they're obviously, it's kind of a 2/3 of the time or just over 2/3 of the time, or just under 2/3 of the time you're running the football. 105 rushes for 733 yards. That's good enough for exactly 7 yards per carry.
You know what those numbers are reminiscent of? Obviously, I think they got a little bit more shots, but that's Taysom Jamal and go fast, go hard, but without the tempo. That to me is a 1-2 punt, because 6.5. I think at one point, in that 2015 season,
they were both.
2015 was when Taysom had the plantar fasciitis against Nebraska. 2014, then when Taysom and Jamal were doing that thing, they had that shootout with Toledo and stuff. I think they were both 6+ yards. I mean, that's kind of so BYU
pretty
fans
bonkers.
are well. They're at least those that are old enough are going to remember that kind of a feel of offense. I think that's what's rolling into Provo tomorrow night.
Well, let's take a quick break here. We'll come back. We've got more to break down on this game, and we'll get into it. By the way, I want to make mention that every Wednesday on our station across every show, all day long, we give out tickets. This Win Ticket Wednesday, you're going to win a pair of tickets. Here you go. This is more your speed, JJ. You ready for this?
Okay.
ZZ Top and Leonard Skinner. Let's go.
Okay.
There you go. Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater.
I'm not sure anybody in those bands that was in them originally is still with us.
Oh, come on. ZZ Top for sure. They're still.
But I'm sure it'll be amazing.
They're still growing the beards. They're still going. All right. Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater, that's going to be on September 26th. So you got to win it next week, and then it's going to be next week. So that's on a Win Ticket Wednesday. All day long, KSL Sports Zone bringing you your Win Ticket Wednesdays. We'll come back. We got more to break down. It is a Football Friday right here, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's a Friday, and we're talking football non-stop. All football, all the time. This is another edition of Football Friday with JJ and Alex. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, everybody, welcome back. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Alex Curie, Jeremiah Jensen, Riley Nelson, of course, on a Football Friday. We have secured in the envelope Stevenson Sylvester scores from the road. He's hooked us up. Did you guys get a chance to look at those and cheat off of them a little bit? I don't know.
Are we sure they're from him? The one seems so based in reality.
I think all of them sort of felt like it a little bit more than because he took his medicine this week. He saw. Yeah. You can't go too wild on these score predictions.
Well, and the other thing, he's back to being what you would expect from the DNA of a defensive player, and that's less points. Yeah. His point totals were getting too far up there. I just feel like at your core, you can't even if it is your team.
You got to back it off.
Yeah, you can't having point totals in the 30s and 40s. That's just against your nature.
Let's have more of this conversation about the Kansas State and BYU matchup before we get into next hour. We're going to chat about all of the matchups next hour, of course, but. Before we do, though, I did notice that there was some movement on the news front, JJ, when it comes to the Pac-12 and the guessing as to where teams are going to be shifting around. And for the first time in the entire process that we've been talking about, this Pac-12 that's now become the six-pack that will likely – I mean, it'll have to become at least an eight-pack team, right, to be able to
at least eight to maintain their status as an FBS conference.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, I think they're going to want to add more just for balance. They want an 8-game schedule in conference, right? So you got to have at least 9 to do that. So I think they're going to add more than just 2.
So Utah State's name has been dropped as a possible team that may end up being – added to the Pac-12, but there's some stuff that needs to happen before that. And this is something we could talk about too. Like, is that an awesome scenario for Utah State? Is it just like it's the best you could do with what you got? And because what also comes with that, if Utah State ends up getting invited, is I think that they're going to have to buy their way in because they're going to have to pay out what that Mountain West buyout would be on top of the fact that, probably take a little bit of a cut at the beginning. So I don't know if this is the best move, but certainly the Pac-12 still has a name, that goes along with this conference. But what are your thoughts on Utah State and the possibility of maybe getting an invite? And what has to happen for that to even go down?
Yeah, so Ross Dellinger, who writes for Yahoo Sports, who's been breaking all this news on the Pac-6, Pac-2, whatever it is at this point, who's been dialed in on this story, had an update today. And the main part of this story is the Pac-12's desire to go east, to pull in Memphis and maybe a couple of other AAC schools to go with it, because I think Memphis wants it to be a package deal. But a lot of people think Memphis will be thanks but no thanks.
Why? Because of
how does that the AAC is a really solid group of 6 now conference, and does the Pac-12 offer them much better deal than what's and you're going to have the expense of traveling and playing all these games on the West Coast. What would be the incentive for Memphis to do that?
I'm going to be so snarky. The carcass that they would rather pick from would be the ACC once Florida State and Clemson and Miami and all
maybe
those guys
that
exit.
maybe that folds.
So they're like yeah, when we'll go be part of that resurrection.
Yeah.
The Memphis wants to be in the ACC. Yeah.
Well,
and that makes so much more sense on so many levels.
And by the way, like, kudos to their athletic people who are like having that discussion versus people who are going, I don't know, it should be nice. I mean, we were talking about this weekend in the ACC how ridiculous it is because you have Syracuse hosting a conference game against Stanford, and then Cal goes to Florida State or something like that.
Dumb. Doesn't make
So,
sense.
so we've got we
Or no,
have,
Florida State goes to I can't remember what it was, but it's a stupid matchup.
we had parent-teacher conferences and go in there and they're just like, hey, he's really struggling with math. He thinks it's 10, but he drew 18 circles. He sees a 10 on the paper, but
Right.
he drew 18 circles. And
He'd be a
when he
perfect
sees a
commissioner.
12, there's only 2 X's.
He'd be a perfect
my young
commissioner.
son, who is, of course, being indoctrinated as a college football fan. And then now I'm worried, geography's coming up pretty soon. He's in first grade. I think they start doing some geography in second. And they're going to have him label oceans. He's not going to know which. If Memphis ends up in the Pacific and you've got Cal in the Atlantic, think about the kids.
No, I know. I think that's a point that
We do need
needs
to think
be-
about the kids. That's a great point.
when you have these matchups, the ACC with a
What
couple
are we
of
doing?
Pacific
Cal.
teams that can throw a rock into the Pacific Ocean from where they live.
Look, Memphis, I don't think logically, I know everything goes out the door
Well, then
with
that's
this
good
stuff.
news- that's
but
good
the
news
only
for Utah
reason any
State.
of that illogical stuff happened because of the money.
Well, and
money
at what
drives
point-
all of it. And if the money's not there, what's Memphis's motivation to play halfway across the country? It doesn't make any
Right,
sense.
especially if the Pac-12 is not relevant, which it won't be.
It's going to be another group of
compared
5
to the- yeah.
conference.
I'm harping on it, and the listeners are probably sick of the joke, but at what point is the money big enough, JJ, that they can bear the cost of rebranding?
Right.
Like, come on. Gosh.
The Pac-12, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah, but this is good news for Utah State because while it doesn't make any sense for Memphis, this new Pac-12 might make sense for Utah State.
Well, it's certainly a better option than whatever version of the
Do you
Mountain
want to
West
get
is
left
gonna come in.
behind with whatever the rubble is left of the Mountain West? I mean,
No.
who would you rather partner with? Boise State, San Diego State, Colorado State, Fresno State,
Oregon
or
State, Washington State,
Wyoming
yeah.
and New Mexico and San Jose State?
The drive into Pullman from Spokane
Don't.
is awesome. I loved it. Rolling hills, farmland.
Yeah, because you were listen.
Riley,
maybe
Riley
it's 'cause
just
it's
bought
late enough
property
in
on the
the
Palouse.
I grew up a Washington fan, so I could never admit that any
it was
part of
good out
Eastern
there.
Washington is pretty out there.
The
but
Iowa of the West, the Palouse.
it's like there's a reason that we all were like,
I played in Corvallis, and we won out there, but I don't remember anything about the surrounding areas.
no, Corvallis is actually kind of pretty. I mean,
Is
it's
it?
more of a traditional Pacific
It's
Northwest
60
kind of
miles from
look.
the coast.
But yeah, Washington State is
It's basically Western Idaho.
it's. I guess you could do the
That's insulting to
amber,
Idaho.
Amber waves of grain.
Amber Waves of
sure,
Grain, that was
sure.
it, yeah.
Yeah, the amber waves of grain. They took to heart the brewing it up part, right? Where it was that was
Listen,
all the
you
people
Seattle
did out there.
snob, the sea's not so shiny because the sun never breaks through.
It's listen.
sea
I
to
know.
shining sea.
I
At
know
least
exactly.
It lives up to it.
I know exactly what
part of
what the misgivings are of the Pacific Northwest. But when you go to Husky Stadium versus
Yeah.
whatever the version of their stadium
Whatever
is
they
that they
call
call out there, I don't even know. That seats 28,000.
Applejacks.
Who cares? All right.
Applejack Stadium.
Let's take a break. We'll come back.
Why
We've got
not?
more to chat about. We've got all 3 games to break down, though. Utah State, Temple, BYU, and Kansas State. That one's going to be, of course, down in Provo late tomorrow. And then a middle-of-the-day game, a 2
2
p.m.
o'clock
kick.
with a 98 high.
What's the humidity going to be like down there, JJ? Oh, just so bad. Oh. All right. we'll take a break. We'll break it all down next. It is JJ and Alex. It is Football Friday. More to go, 97.5 EKSL Sports Zone.